Hi, welcome back. All right, let's give this a run through and see how it goes. I have missed you. It's been a while. So let's get started. I wanted to do today my story and why I'm here on this channel. I have this written out, and I'm going to follow what I've written here for the purpose of staying on track and keeping the time closer to 20 minutes. I find that that's a comfortable viewing time for myself even. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. And if I didn't say it already, thank you so much for joining me. Sento Pace. So I kind of see myself as a poster child for what it looks like to spend your life just working on yourself. I finally realized that's perfectly okay. And that it's a constructive thing. He who lives in harmony with himself lives in harmony with the universe. Marcus Aurelius. Something I find interesting is the amount of men and women that haven't an inkling, not a clue, that we were denied in childhood what I call developmental success. That our behaviors are in fact coming from survival mode thinking, and most importantly, feeling. If we create from the repeating theme to our emotions, and we do, it's no wonder I created codependent relationships. Now, I just recently processed sorry, I want to move this up. Yeah, I did. I just recently processed guilt that was way in there from 20 years ago when my mother passed away. And I had no feelings of missing her when she passed. Not that I didn't love my mother. It was our relationship. What wasn't there? What could never be there? And I was 38 with toddlers, 2 toddlers, when she passed. I had only recently realized, at the time, that I was abused. That's crazy because when I was a toddler, it was the first time I was taken into custody and placed in foster care. The first memory to my life was sitting in between 2 police officers in a cruiser, along with some mental snapshots that I have of the facility where evidently I was placed. I was verbal. I can recall being asked questions and a conversation that revolved around my mother going to the store to get me cookies. To me, I was expecting cookies when my mom came home. I can remember feeling the next thing that stands out, and this probably wasn't too much longer later. I can remember feeling ostracized in one of my first experiences of what we know as our Halloween holidays, when fellow trick-or-treaters in our community passed up our home. Apparently my father's name was so often in the local paper for marijuana-related jail time. I guess they didn't trust the candy we were handing out. This was in the mid-60s. I couldn't have been more than age 3 or 4. That was probably the first sense of feeling what we might recognize as shame or guilt, though at that age I would not have been able to identify feelings. Identifying our own feelings as adults is possibly one of the biggest challenges facing humanity today. The next big imprint on my psyche that comes to my mind would have been around the age of 5. I was in a foster home, the second home. The first was temporary placement, and there were 2 sisters staying there with me. My mother said I was very upset that they were going to be separated and placed in different homes. I am aware that I was 4 at that time. So this next placement in this other foster home, I was closer to 5. And here's how I know that. Well, let me back up. Let me start with the sentence. I was in a foster home, the second home, with a mom and a dad and 5 children of their own, all sons. I was not there so she could foster children. I was there so she could have a girl. I was gifted beautiful dresses, shoes, accessories. I went to school where other children, I can remember, wanted to be like me. I know that I got a lot of attention for my abilities, whether I was what might be considered bright, talented, I don't know. This would have been in drawing or simply my positive energy. At this time, I'm getting attention, right? Evidently, I'm important, but it was not me. It was my gender and what that served for this adult mom, stepmom of 5 sons. And here comes the big imprint. One night, we children were put to bed early. I was asleep when sounds outside woke me. I went to the window where I could see in the backyard downstairs a party. They had a beautiful in-ground pool. This was a lovely home in an affluent area, and I distinctly recalled sensing that I was not wanted there. It was to my belief that I was sleeping while their own children joined the festivities. Now, I have no way of knowing whether that was so, but what I do know is that I went back to my bed unsure of what to do. Wake up and go down there, or stay put where I wasn't intruding. These were feelings, not the words. I didn't have the words. These are my words for today. Those were the feelings. I was in their home for about a year. I can gauge that as she, the foster mom, had me take a test to enter kindergarten, and I had a fall birthday. I was back with my mom by 1st grade. When I left that home, I was placed in the clothing, along with the meager belongings I came with, and every article of clothing, toys, belongings, even a piggy bank with change in it, stayed there. Nothing was mine, apparently, to be sent home with me. I wish to jump to another big imprint and skip a lot of other details, and this would take me to around age 8, give or take. I can see just where my mother and I are standing in our apartment. I can see the window, placement of the window. I can see the furniture. I can see the carpeting. By this time, this was the 70s. I can see where the kitchen is. I can see this clearly. I can remember this feeling. Again, the words I use today were not there. The feeling. I'm using words to convey how I felt during these circumstances, not how I feel now, how I felt at the time. Okay, I'm being told by my mother that both my father and her father are paying people to break into our home and drug her coffee. That they are also paying the people at the restaurants where she goes to get coffee to drug her coffee that she gets. And as I speak about this, at this a woman who has, as I speak about this as a woman who has understood, learned, and moved beyond these experiences. So I have incredible compassion for my mom and her suffering. And so if I seem emotionally affected, I'll go on. Back to the story. And it is a story. It only exists in the past. It's not here. It's not now. It is the feelings, the emotions that we must address, process, move past. I felt such a sense of responsibility. I had no idea that's what it was. As she begins to question whether I believe her, and in fact pleads with me to believe her. She asked twice in a row, "You believe me, don't you? You believe me, don't you?" Both times using my first and middle names. All I could think of was how impossible this would be. My father was on an entirely different coast than my mother. Neither my grandpap or my dad, whom I only saw, probably my dad, a few handfuls of times in my life, could afford to pay for such an orchestration. And yet, I looked in my mother's desperate eyes and said, "Yes, yes, I believe you, Mom." I'm going to tell you something. My mother loved me. Her love for me is possibly the only love she felt in her lifetime. Yeah. Her own mom, I would say also, who passed away before I was born. When my mom herself, when my mom was herself, probably early to mid 20s, I ended up spending a little more than half of my childhood being raised by other people in families not my own, in foster care. I aged out and attempted life as an adult, unknowing how to handle a relationship with a mentally ill parent, let alone how to have a relationship with myself, love myself, and take care of myself. I have been figuring out that to take care of others, I have been figuring out that to take care of others before taking care of me is an incredibly unrewarding, dissatisfying, painful, insufferable way to experience life. I have experienced firsthand that codependency affects our lives in ways that can only offer failing relationships. That to heal trauma required me to move beyond survival thinking, take responsibility for my mental makeup, manage my own behavior, my own thought, word, and deeds, and that to free my mind, the rest really does follow. This is a quote by Sri Chinmoy. Probably didn't correctly pronounce it. Try not to change the world. You will fail. Try to love the world. Lo, the world is changed forever. I invested in myself a number of years counseling with a most phenomenal therapist. This has been several years ago now. She specialized in personality disorders, cluster B. When I started with her, I was diagnosed with or exhibited the behaviors or symptoms to that personality disorder that she diagnosed. At the time I left her professional services and care, all symptoms which reflected that diagnosis were and have been in remission. I studied a lot, and both formal and self-taught education, which has brought inexplicable understanding and learning. In moving beyond my own trauma, my own maladaptive behaviors and codependency, through choosing me, self-awareness, self-forgiveness, self-love, I continue in the journey of self-mastery. Earlier I spoke about the necessity for us as adults, men and women, to identify and feel our emotions. This is so critical. It's our way back to ourselves, our truth, who we are. We are souls having these experiences of being human. We are here to experience the love that we are. We are not here to suffer, creating hell on earth. No, but we are. And it can only get worse, to extinction, to the destruction of ourselves and this physical reality, unless or until each one chooses himself. The start of that is to take personal responsibility for what we create in thought, word, and deed. We are creating the duality reality, one of survival, one of victim, persecutor. Do you enjoy this? Is that what you'd prefer? We need to ask ourselves these questions. See, I don't think so. We're unconscious of the simple cause and effect when it comes to our thought, word, and deed. And that's the gift I have to share. Recognizing the connections to those patterns. That ability is what led me to heal myself. I have my experiences to share. In understanding myself, I see both the good and the bad, right? The duality. And I watch it play out with its consequences. With its consequences in our behaviors. I see it in myself, I see it in others. I think if a man or woman can see the connection to his or her behavior and the effects, what it's creating, he can understand he has the power to make a difference in his own life first, and then into his world around him. I'm not going to lie, as the popular phrase goes, and I'm going to keep it real with you. Personal responsibility is a heavy burden, especially when we've come from environments where our wiring got all mixed mashed, sort of like my own childhood. What point of reference do you have of what works? What's functional? That was my dog. I swear. I don't know if the camera picked it up. It's so. I know myself. I had no idea that my behaviors weren't functional. And that's what comes out of trauma. So there are 3 books here in this community which I offer as recommended reading. And the purpose for the education, the information they offer, is to help you get clear on who you are not and who you are. That's going to transform you, your life, and yes, the world. You are the gift. You are the gift to yourself. You are the gift to the world. If this message and purpose resonate with you, I invite you, please, to like, subscribe, and share. Much appreciation. Also, could I ask you what you liked about this message and the content, along with any helpful and constructive comments? Again, much appreciated. I would really love the opportunity to engage with like-minded, like-hearted fellow men and women sharing this journey to self. Feel the peace. And to quote yet another popular phrase, that's the shizzle.